Welcome to NASCAR Lap by Lap with me, Garon Bach. We're going to take a look back at a kind of exciting Texas race weekend, look ahead at Kansas Speedway, and then joining us momentarily will be motorsport.com, Nick DeGroot. I want to go ahead and jump right into Texas. I hope you guys are having a great midweek hump day Wednesday. And the first thing I want to mention about Texas was the overall racing. The track seems to now be hitting a stride that I did not expect would perform as well. A lot of drivers, last week I was talking about how we had a disappointing Talladega, and then we're now going to turn to a disappointing Texas. But to be honest, before the wrecks at the end, I quite enjoyed the race, and I thought that overall it was a good product. But at the same time, we still heard about drivers not being able to pass, fans, teams alike complaining about passing was difficult, dirty air. But that seems to not just be an issue with Texas, but an issue with the car. But even in the lower series, in the Xfinity and then the Craftsman Truck Series, it seemed to be that the track has aged well enough to where maybe it doesn't need to get the Atlanta treatment anymore. I do believe wholeheartedly that the track does have its issues, especially with a bump in turn 4 that basically makes it impossible to pass. We saw that with the race leader Josh Berry at the in the middle of stage 1, and then overall the track itself, I think, has its issues, but it's starting to get to a point to where the wear of the surface is now producing a better form of racing, in which many fans enjoy because of the fact that drivers are actually having to drive. They have to make sure they're not oversteering, make sure you're not overreacting to an issue. But let's go ahead and now look at the results from the race weekend. So, as you can see at the top is Joey Logano, who is a big story for the weekend, because you got to remember, this is somebody that is coming off of a DQ at Talladega after a top 5 finish, and he had struggled the entire season to finish in the top 5. He's led a lot of laps, but at the end of the race, it seemed that he could not get it done. But he got it done last weekend at Texas. And then below him is Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain, as you can see, didn't earn these stage points, but with the multiple restarts, he's done very well at defending his position and also gaining positions later on in the races. And that's exactly what he did later on. Ross Chastain moved all the way up to second place, and I believe wholeheartedly he will earn another win this season, especially going to a track that he just won at last year in Kansas. But Ross Chastain, Trackhouse Racing overall, has just struggled. But Ross Chastain has put up great numbers. He seems to be doing well. He seems like he might be able, if he doesn't get a win, might be able to race his way in on points. But overall, good weekend for him. Below Joey Logano is Ryan Blaney. And Ryan Blaney, obviously, he just seems to have some dark magic cloud around him that's causing him not to be able to win races. If you look at the numbers for multiple races this season, he has been the fastest car on the track, but just cannot get it done and find his forward and victory lane. And then the team I wanted to highlight the most, I was shocked when I looked at the results and realized, wait a minute, what did they do? And it was for Legacy Motor Club. As you can see here, let me get this a little bigger for you guys. As you can see here, it was finishing in 5th place was Eric Jones, and then John Hunter Nemechek in 8th. I think Legacy Motor Club, if they are able to start proving and finding top 10 finishes at your cookie cutter racetracks, Texas is a little different, but when you go to these mile and a halves, you're going to be able to distinguish yourself from the others. And it's been a rough couple of weeks for many teams, but Legacy Motor Club has struggled basically from Daytona on, after Jimmy Johnson finished 3rd and John Hunter Nemechek finished very highly there as well. But now joining me is motorsport.com, Nick DeGroot. Nick, I want to thank you for joining me. I'm very excited to have you on. I hope you're having a great day. I want to start off getting your opinions about the Texas weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people after the race because, like, I always watch Jeff Gluck's poll there. They're not happy, but with the way Texas is now, I think that's about as good as a race you're going to get at current Texas Motor Speedway in its current configuration. So I was generally happy and surprised with just how the race went. I thought it was just going to be another follow the leader like Texas tends to be in recent years, but it was exciting, especially the final stage. It was, mostly because of wrecks and restarts, but still, it was exciting. We got some new faces up front. Joey got his first one of the year. It was a nail biter to the very end. Almost had a big underdog story with Michael McDowell. And yeah, I thought it was a fun Texas race for what Texas now is. And I don't like that bump though. In turn four, I hate too because it seemed like in the past it was like if you ran it over, you're wrecked. But this year, it seemed like it's fine, and then one lap, it's not fine, and that's kind of what both Josh Berry and Kyle Busch were describing. They were having great days, and that thing just messed it all up for them. So that's unfortunate. At least in turn 1 and 2, you kind of know if you go up here, that's no man's land. You're done. But in 3 and 4, it seems to be a lot more of an unknown where it's like I can go up here now, but can I do it later? And can I do it on with new tires and low air pressures? And it's thrown for a curveball, that's for sure.
You've been covering NASCAR now for a couple of years. The question I had coming out of the weekend was, do you think fans had such a low expectation for Texas that they thought, hey, this is actually a good race? Or do you think it was a genuinely a good race for what it was?
It's so just to put it in perspective, like we weren't seeing people going back and forth for the race lead. It's difficult to pass, very hard to pass.
Mhm.
Part of the reason why Josh Berry wrecked, he was desperately trying to find clean air to get around a lap car. So that's not ideal. And in the traditional sense, it's not a great race, but the race itself, it had twists and turns, it had drama, it had unusual names up front, and for that reason, I think, like I said, it's the best you can hope for at Texas. And my big thing about it too was I liked how on the restarts, um, the guys up front were actually behaving themselves. Like, yeah, it turned into a wreck fest, but most of the wrecks were in the back or in the midfield. I think the highest, furthest wreck we got was when Reddick got spun or half spun by Daniel Suarez there for like sixth or seventh. Everything else is in the back. The guys up front were behaving themselves. So I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. And I think it's a great appetizer for what's coming because we got some more mile and a halfs coming up and very different from Texas, but still these kind of tracks intermediates, they know how to deliver the drama with this next gen. I don't know what it is.
Well, you joined right whenever I was talking about Legacy Motor Club. We saw Josh Berry and Wood Brothers Racing get a win at another mile and a half out in Las Vegas. Do you think we might start, oddly enough, seeing some out of nowhere type of performances or winners at the cookie cutter for NASCAR?
I mean, I think there's teams who go there. Like I think Trackhouse is a perfect one where it's like this is a track we can win at. Where most of the other time it's Gibbs, it's Hendrick, it's Penske. I think Kansas, Vegas, those are tracks where a team like the Wood Brothers and Trackhouse can get up there. And I'm very curious to see what Ryan Preece can do because he's been outperforming his teammates most of the time this year. And when we went to Vegas last time, that was I think a top 3, top 5 run for him. So yeah, I think there's a few teams that are in the midfield, and sometimes they climb up into the top 10 there. I think those are some teams that are going to be looking at Kansas like we can win here. The Priestes, the Chastains, the Suarezes, and people like that. So definitely.
You mentioned RFK. There's someone who at Texas I hit on. I expected them to kind of do well with Busher or with Priest. I expected Kozlowski to maybe be able to make a bounce. I thought the same thing at Talladega. Do you think that RFK is in a slump because it's just that's how NASCAR is, or do you think that RFK is other internal issues that just going up against a Penske organization that's making it difficult for them?
I think what's happening is as we go further and further into this next gen era, it started off everybody was on an equal playing field, and now slowly but surely those big 3 teams, they're getting further and further away, and the separation between them and the next tier teams, which is what I would say is what the track houses and the RFKs are and teams like that, it's getting more pronounced. So it's harder for them to punch out of the midfield, and I think that's what's happening. I don't think they've lost. I mean, maybe they've lost a little pace compared to last year, but it's more so the teams around them that they were competing with last year, they're getting a little further away. Even 23XI, they seem to have crawled away from those teams, and they're kind of hanging out with the front running teams more often. But one note about Ryan Preece, so he almost won Talladega, as we saw. And then, of course, post-race tech. It got lost in all of the chaos at the end of Texas, but he was really close to almost winning that race because during the green flag pit stops, he came to pit road, the caution comes out, and he just didn't get off pit road before Larson and the leaders came around, and he ended up one lap down. If he had gotten off pit road sooner, we could be talking about Ryan Preece and RFK just won here at Texas. And I think that's another thing with these mile and a halfs. They've become so unpredictable in one little thing and can vault you to the front of the field. And we see once you have the lead, once you have the clean air, if you know what you're doing up there, if you can aero block, you got it.
Yeah, it seems like Kyle Larson, I like to use the term that he's inevitable. It seems like every single weekend, it's just, okay, guys, Kyle Larson's in the field, so it's either him or somebody else. And I wanted to ask you now, because I want to turn over to Kansas. This is a track that Kyle Larson has done well at. This is a track Denny Hamlin's done well at. Is this going to be another one of those expect the big three to outpace everybody? Or like I mentioned before, do you think someone else might have something in the bag to get past those top dogs?
I think it's kind of like what we saw last year. I think it's going to be Gibbs and Hendrick right at the front, but I also think at these intermediates, you can have those other teams, the ones that are usually mired in the midfield. They can get closer. They can go up there and mess with them. And I think what we saw last year, we saw, what was it at the end of the race? We had 2 Hendrick cars, we had a Gibbs car, but we also had Buescher there in the Roush car. And I think you're going to see that again this Sunday. I think you're going to see the usual suspects up there dominate, but there's going to be at least one, maybe a couple who are going to be coming up through the field, and they're going to be mixing up with those race leaders. And I think that's what makes these races so interesting now, because they've become the wild cards, the intermediate tracks. It's so weird to think of them that way.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you. It is because it's odd to think about, because we've seen now that what Daytona has become and what Talladega has become. Daytona still has its stature and its grandeur of being, the home of motorsport racing and the home of NASCAR. But do you think it's gotten to a point to where fans are now, oddly enough, trying to tune out of the exciting big 2.5 mile tracks and go, let's go back to the cookie cutters? I want 20 of those on the schedule.
I mean, I think people will always love their super speedways, no matter how strange the racing is getting there, with how you just have to stay in line and wait because, big wrecks, close finishes, people are going to watch no matter what. But I do think it's flipped in recent years with the short tracks and the intermediates, where it used to be, and even road courses, give us road courses, give us short tracks. We got those. Then we got into this car, and it's like, wait, no, go back. Give us more intermediates. We want more intermediates. And I think it's quite funny how NASCAR, they built the perfect car for the intermediate tracks right when they were doing less of them and bringing more of these other tracks where this car seems to struggle a little bit more when it comes to passing. So it is funny how it's flipped. And I do think people look at these mile and a halves and these intermediates as the go-to tracks, the ones you circle on the calendar. I can't wait for this one. And I think you saw that this week. Part of the reason why NASCAR is like, all right, time to move the finale. They're seeing the writing on the wall. It's like, we got to get this car on these intermediate tracks.
So our network, the Bleacher Brothers Network, is based in South Florida. I'm very excited to hear the news yesterday about the championship going on a rotation, coming back to Homestead, Miami. What are your overall thoughts on that?
About time. I think about 5 years too late. I think we should have done 1, maybe 2 races at Phoenix, and then be like, all right, this experiment's over. And no offense to Phoenix, because they did a lot of great work upgrading that facility and everything, but it's not the on-track product. It's what's lacking. And these mile and a halves, Homestead specifically with its progressive banking, it's just incredible. And I also like that. I like that it's coming back, but I like that they didn't say it's coming back forever. It's a rotating thing, because I think even with Homestead, even though it's going to produce a better show, I think if you left it, you're going to see what you are already seeing with one team winning the championship every year. Some team, I don't know who, but somebody's going to get Homestead under lock and key. And then every year, one of their cars is going to make the Final Four, and they're just going to win the championship. So I think changing it every year, it's exciting for the fans. It throws a curveball to the drivers, and it keeps mixing it up. If you're going to have a one-race championship, which is what we have, you got to mix it up. You can't just stay at the same place every year, because we've already seen with Penske. We know if any of them make the Final Four, heck, I think even if Cintric makes the Final Four, Penske's winning the title.
Yeah, it's really odd too, because NASCAR, they came out and said, yeah, we're going to start a rotating schedule. Don't worry, there's not going to be any super speedways or short tracks. Thank goodness, by the way. I'm glad they didn't, which I'm pretty sure they're smart enough. obviously, but we've seen decisions in the past, such as Phoenix. No offense, but but I wanted to get your overall thoughts about if they what happens if they do move away from a single race and they go to a couple of races, like maybe two or three, to decide a champion, which we've heard talks about, fans want. What do you think would then change for how they line it up for the championship?
Well, it's funny you say that because we know that NASCAR really didn't want to let go of Phoenix as the finale. They wanted to keep it as their track. They invested a lot into it. And Ben Kennedy made sure to mention it's still going to be in the round of 8, no matter what. It's still going to be near the end of the year. So if the format does change here and it ends up being a 2-3 race run to the championship or whatever they do, Phoenix, they could still get their wish. Phoenix could still be part of that championship round. So I think no matter what, that even if it's a few races, no matter what they do, even if they don't do anything, but the finale is still so important with this playoff format. Even when it was 10 races, the finale, it always came down to the finale. Very rarely, even with Jimmy Johnson, did he just run away before the finale. We came to that final race and we didn't know the championship, and that's just the nature of the playoffs. So it's become so important with this format, and I don't know why it's taken this long to kind of give it that extra attention. They changed everything about the championship with the chase and the playoffs, but it's like, just leave it at Homestead. Oh, now we'll go to Phoenix and stay there forever. It's like, no, you changed everything else. We got to change this up too to keep it fresh. So I'm glad they're finally doing that. And I think no matter what they do with the format, I think that final race is going to be the most important.
Are there any tracks, any cities you would like to see host the final race or the final couple of races that we haven't seen? I read in your article earlier that you mentioned Texas. You like a track that no one would think about, but
do you see that race this weekend? It was crazy, but I will say I put it 6. So I put like 5 tracks in front of it, but I'm looking at climate, I'm looking at markets. It's near Fort Worth. It's nice weather. It's like, I think it'd be better than Phoenix, weirdly to say, but no, I think 100% I'm all in on Vegas. I want to see a finale at Vegas. It's Las Vegas. The track is great. The city's great for hosting finales. It does it with so many different series, so many different sports. And I also think that Charlotte, maybe not the best for, putting your brand out there in front of people who don't already see it every day of their lives, but I think Charlotte would be great because it's NASCAR's home. Put it on the oval. It's an intermediate track. It'd be exciting. It's in the middle of a big city. So Vegas and Charlotte, I think, would be great ones. I love Kansas. That's like just same reason for Vegas, except it's not in Vegas. It's in the middle of Kansas. So that's kind of hurts a little bit on the finale scale. So those would probably be my top 3 tracks that I'd want to see it go to. However, Nashville and Darlington are 2 that I also think about because it's like Nashville's a great place. It's different than the other intermediates. It's kind of there's no other place like it. It's kind of the Phoenix of intermediates where it's like no other track compares to what this has. And Darlington, not the best market, but it's such a good track. And you want to crown your champion, prove yourself at Darlington. I think that would just be incredible.
I think the Lady in Black would be pretty cool. I liked when I read Darlington because I feel like that's a track that has kind of lost a little bit of what it used to be, and which is just odd to say. But I want to go back to Kansas now. I want to ask you your opinion about who do you want to look out for this weekend? We had Ross Chastain win there just last fall. Do you think that there could be a Trackhouse driver in victory lane once again there?
Oh, I'm definitely looking at Ross Chastain. I mean, most recent winner here. He just got second here at Texas. We know even when Trackhouse has been falling off, he at mile and a half at intermediate tracks, he's always there. He was top 5 at Vegas. He was top 5 at Texas. So I think at Kansas here, 100%, Ross Chastain is one of the guys outside of the top 3 teams. You got to look at him. I think those Roush cars, especially Buescher and even Priest, pay attention to them. Those are probably the main ones. I struggle I want to say 2311, but they, like I said, they feel like they're kind of just an honorary member of the big 3 now, but I think Reddick and Bubba are absolutely going to be up front. So I guess I should put them there because 2311 hasn't won yet this year. So yeah, they're going to be up there. And no, Riley, I didn't forget about you, but apologies. I'm going to stick with Reddick and Bubba for this one. So I think those guys are the ones who can get up there. They are the favorites outside of the obvious to go up there and potentially win the race.
So you mentioned the teams to look out for. I want to get your driver. Who do you think is going to win this weekend?
Ooh, I gotta pick one. Okay. Ooh.
Sorry to put you on the spot like that.
Put me on the spot. I know I'm kind of repeating myself at this point, but momentum's a big thing in this sport, and the one's got it. He's got a good finish. He's good at Kansas. He's the most recent winner here. So Ross Chastain. If it's not one of the big three, Ross Chastain.
I'm gonna take the easy one out here and pick Kyle Larson. That's who I was thinking.
Of course.
So another Chevy. That way I won't feel too wrong when he does end up winning on Sunday, and I won't be too upset about no upset story. But Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining. It was great having you on. You're always welcome to come back. But again, just I appreciate you joining today.
Thank you so much. And one last note I just want to say, because I just had this thought while we were talking about it. Wouldn't it be cool if the season starts with a Crown Jewel Daytona 500 and it ends with a Crown Jewel Southern 500? That just feels like the perfect way to book at it. So final thought there. Thank you so much for having me on.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Nick. That was motorsport.com, Nick DeGroot. I appreciated the work that he's put out. He recently, if you want to go check it out, he put out a top 10 list of tracks to go view over at motorsport.com. And I thought that was a great list. I loved the mention of Texas because of the fact that I really think within the next 2 or 3 years, Texas might end up hitting its stride. It seemed to actually have a decent and nice crowd size. Dale Jr. mentioned on his podcast just a couple of days ago that this is a track that he moved from being in a low tier up to a top end of a track that he wants to go visit. And overall, I think that would be a good move for the sport because it's Fort Worth, Dallas area. But the only issue you got to remember for those is going up against the Cowboys and Friday Night Lights because it's Texas and they love their football. But going back to Kansas now, I want to mention a few drivers that I expect to do well based off of their average finishes and then the names. I've obviously mentioned Kyle Larson. You heard Nick DeGroot mention Ross Chastain, and I agree with him on that. I think Ross Chastain, you've got that momentum, and I love riding momentum. That's the reason why I thought Austin Cindric would do well at Texas. I thought after you get the win, you're going to go back and do it again. And he did win stage 1, but sadly, for about 10 other drivers, just caught bad luck, bad time, caution. But the names to look out for, you've got the other Hendrick Motorsports Chevy in Alex Bowman. In his 5 races ran there, he has 5 top 10s. And that leads me to one of my bets for the weekend is that right now, Alex Bowman is sitting at plus 100 on DraftKings.com. And if you use the Bleacher Brothers link, you will be able to get if you bet $5, it's $200 instantly in your account if you win, I believe. But for plus 100 for a driver that has 5 top 10s, which is all of his starts at the track, I believe that those are very good numbers. And then we've got the rest of Hendrick Motorsports. So you got your names, Denny Hamlin. He's got the win there. He's got 5 top 5s. And then you've got Kyle Larson, 4 top 5s, and both of those are in 6 races. Those are the 2 that if they finish 1-2 again, it will be those 2. I think it'll be Kyle Larson ahead of Hamlin, but you got to remember then immediately below Ross Chastain is William Byron and Chase Elliott. The issue, if you love your underdogs this weekend, is that you're most likely not going to have them unless their name is Ross Chastain, because the rest of the average finish leaders here are going to be your Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, your Bubba Wallace, who has a win here. 2311 has multiple wins here since the next gen has come out in 2022. And then for the fans, I know how much love Joey Logano. Joey Logano has a really nice average finish there. He's only got 2 top 10 finishes, but momentum, you got to ride momentum. And this is a driver, Joey Logano was a driver that entering last weekend was someone that I considered maybe starting to write off. I figured the DQ at a super speedway, I was like, well, my goodness, what's going on? I was going to wait until Atlanta reappeared in July, until Daytona showed up again in August. I was going to wait until then. But Joey Logano has the win. I think that Team Penske with Ryan Blaney as well, I think that those 2 are also 2 to watch out for. I think that overall those are the names that whenever the race starts Sunday, expect about near the end of stage 2. they'll possibly be up front unless cautions happen and some weird strategy goes on. But that's the reason why I bring up Joey Logano, is because I like the odds on his top 5 finish over at DraftKings. Joey Logano is currently plus 180 to finish in the top 5. And while he only has one at the track, with the win, with the Penske speed that they've shown, that they showed at Vegas, they showed at many other intermediates. And I mean, look back at Texas. We saw Austin Cindric win stage 1. I really think this is a weekend that Penske should do well. I don't think wins, but they will do well. The final thought I want to mention is Ryan Blaney, because I mentioned earlier, he has some of the best speed at all tracks this season. He's the 2023 champion, but he just can't get a win. I don't want anyone to worry about the Penske Fords at the moment. We saw Joey Logano win last week, and the Penske Fords are probably going to win 4 in a row this season because of how well they do at the end of the year. I enjoy talking about the championships. I enjoy talking about the fact that we're going to be on a rotating schedule, finally, which makes sense. That way, if we do end up going to Phoenix, which I'm sure NASCAR will go back to, at least maybe Penske won't have that good of a season and make it in. But remember, it's win and you're in. And I really do think that this is going to be a weekend that either is going to be a favorite or we're going to have some calamity. And remember, it's win and you're in. And do not be shocked if a name that you did not expect to win this weekend ends up in victory lane. But at the same time, don't be upset if it's a big 3 win once again. I want to thank you guys for joining me today once again on Bleacher Brothers NASCAR Lap by Lap. I want to thank Nick DeGroot for joining as well, and please go check out his content on motorsport.com. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I hope you guys enjoy the action at Kansas this upcoming weekend. Thank you guys for joining so much.